Okay, first of all, I'd like to thank Chase Foundation for bringing me here. You may wonder what a Hungarian can do in an event like this. Hungarian is one of the little-known languages. A few linguists know about it, even fewer know it, and there's only about 13 million people who speak it as a native language. It's an exotic kind of language, like Tibetan, I guess. When I was young and daring, I taught Hungarian at Indiana University, Bloomington, in the Department of Uralic and Altaic Studies between 1978 and 81. And there was lots of languages like Hungarian and Tibetan taught in that department, all of them unknown, or little known, and exotic, or what have you. And we had all these stories about the impossibility of the languages and cultures that we were trying to teach. I vividly recall one of my colleagues then, a guy named Steve Halkovic. One morning he comes in and says, you know what, I've been teaching this course, an area course to undergrads, about Inner Asia. And a student says to me, Prof, we've been halfway through this course, and I still don't understand where Inner Asia is. It's between what and what? And there's no answer to that unless you really know English, American English phonology. All right, there's another reason, though, for a Hungarian to be here, and it's got to do with Alexander Csoma de Körös, or Körösi Csoma Sándor, the Hungarian who traveled all the way from Hungary to Tibet. This is a statue of his in the Hungarian Academy of Sciences. And as you all know, he authored the first Tibetan grammar. Let's go on to the next one, please. And also, okay, that's his travels. All the way from the top left corner, that's Europe, down to Tibet. Quite a walk, even by today's standards. And then here's, in the next slide, you'll see the title page of the Tibetan English Dictionary, I believe, and there's also the first grammar that he did. And we have sort of Leporello flyer on there, enough for everybody to take home. This is about two giants of Hungarian science and their collections in the Hungarian Academy libraries, and one of them is Körösi Csoma. I'm also happy to bring this gift to the Chase Foundation. This is a Hungarian documentary, recent one, on the Tibetan community in exile. So maybe in your later events, if you find it good enough, you might want to show it to people interested. This much, I can't offer any more apologies for being here. So I better start talking about Hungarian, right? Okay, it's called Standardizing Hungarian and its Educational Consequences. Their learning said, oh, okay, this is running like crazy now. Never mind, don't look at it. The standard, the leading Hungarian language cultivators summarize the standard versus dialect situation this way. That's 1980. The standard is regarded as a progressive variety, but dialects are dying. The old-fashioned speech ways characterize uneducated people. Consequently, standardization is a must. And those who speak incorrectly must be forced to give up their dialect and learn correct Hungarian. And there are overtly consistent teachers who want their pupils to give up their dialect, words, and accent overnight. In 2001, dialectologist Kishienov stated that ignoring dialect caused linguistic handicaps in schools constitutes human and professional irresponsibility if we believe equality of chances is important. The American educational linguist, my friend John Ball, in his 1999 book, calls this irresponsible behavior educational malpractice. As regards language ideology, Hungarians both in post-World War I Hungary and the neighboring states live in what Jim Milroy calls a standard language culture, in which the awareness of a superordinate standard variety is kept alive in the public mind, by various channels, including teaching, writing, and reading, that tends to inculcate and maintain this knowledge, not always in a very clear form, of course, in speakers' minds. Language cultivators, that is, prescriptive language guardians in the Hungarian context, are held in high esteem by almost all. They are a scientifically dubious lot, recently discredited, but they are a powerful lobby, some of whom thrive on the need to save the nation by saving its language. In a way, because the language is spoken by speakers of Hungarian, this turns out to be to save the nation from itself. Okay, one of the most banal Hungarian truisms is what you see on the slide now. Nyelvében él a nemzet, a nation may be said to live in its own language. And the issue or the goal or the idea is to safeguard pure Hungarian and to safeguard the language from evil forces that mean to destroy it. For most Hungarians, the cause of the Hungarian language in the 21st century, as much as before, is a moral imperative, which needs hardly any discussion, let alone critical analysis. Purism über alles has been the chief component of this ideology. If we recall how John Paget, the British English traveler, characterized mid-19th century Hungarians and their use of German and Hungarian, if we see how the fight against German loanwords and calques used in Hungarian was a linguistic expression of the Hungarians' fight for freedom, then we see why and how deep-rooted this purism über alles idea is. It's a key symbol of the independent Hungarian nation as I speak. It's considered as a highly important public affair. Another important component of Hungarian language ideology is the imperative to speak standard Hungarian by all in all speech situations. Dialects may be used at home, but nowhere else. Speakers of non-standard varieties are often stigmatized as careless, lazy, or cognitively deficient people. And if they are stigmatized, it's a patriotic act, because by stigmatizing the non-standard speakers, you are fostering standard Hungarian. By fostering standard Hungarian, you are promoting the nation. My own view is that some Hungarians stigmatize and socially discriminate other Hungarians, with the full support of nearly all Hungarians, those suffering the discrimination included. The people discriminated against are victims of linguistic hegemony created by the powerful group manufacturing consent for existing power relationships from those in subordinate positions. To use Tova Skutnapkamis's term, they are subject to linguicism, that is social discrimination between groups of people defined on the basis of language. Okay, let me turn to speakers of Hungarian today. At least 1 in 4 native speakers of Hungarian live outside the Hungarian Republic today. And this is due to the consequences of the peace treaties closing World War I. What you see here is a map of pre-1920 and post-1920 Hungary. The outlying red line shows Hungary as we knew it until 1920, the closure of World War I. As a result of World War I, 2/3 of the territory and 1/3 of the population or more were ceded to neighboring countries, some of them newly created. And the innermost black line shows the Hungarian Republic today, or the post-1920 Hungary, which is equal in terms of territory. Right. In today's Hungary, in today's Hungary, we have a largely monolingual country with only 1.5% of Hungarians among 10 million whose native language is not Hungarian. As regards the Hungarian national minorities in the now 7 neighboring countries, now we have Austria, Slovakia, Ukraine, Romania, Serbia, Croatia, and Slovenia surrounding us. As regards the Hungarians, okay, this is, I'll skip that, or maybe if I can go back. This is an irredentist postcard from the 30s trying to educate the British about what it would be, their own country, if they had been inflicted the peace treaties that Hungarians had. Look at Ireland, and that all goes to the USA. So people here may be happy. The northwest goes to Germany, further north goes to Norway, even the southern bit goes to France. But London, England is all right. It's still in England, right? Okay, look at the recent situation of the Hungarian minorities demographically in our 7 neighboring countries. This is census data from 1991 and 2001. What you see is Hungarians numbered 567,000 in 1991, which was down to 520,000 10 years later. That's a decrease of 8.2% in 10 years. The decrease is smallest in Ukraine, only 4%. In Romania, it's huge. 1.6 million Hungarians down to 1.4 million 10 years later, minus 11.7%. In Serbia, we have also a huge decrease, 15.5%. Croatia seems very serious, but it affects only a few people. 22,000 Hungarians in 1991, down to 16,000, a decrease of 25%. Slovenia, barely any Hungarians left in Slovenia. And if you look at Austria, the first line, the second line, the second from the bottom is the important one, which shows the indigenous Hungarians in Oberwart, Felscher. People who teach Sociolinguistics 101 will recall Susan Gall and the famous 1979 book Language Shift. That's where it is. Look how right she was. 1,500 people in 1991, native speakers, down by 31% in 10 years. All right. If we look at the effects or results in 80 years, Hungarians in 1921, as opposed to 2001, we see that in 1921, 650,000 Hungarians in Slovakia constituted 21% of the population. 80 years later, 520,000 constituted only 9.6%. So more than half is the loss in terms of the proportional percentage of populations. In Romania, they constituted Hungarians almost constituted 10% after World War I. They're now down to 6.6%. In Serbia, they're down from 24% to 14%. And in Ukraine, they're down from 18% to 12%. Ever since the end of World War I, most of Hungary's neighboring states have exercised linguistic policies towards their Hungarian minorities. So far as can be judged today, the fact that Hungary, Slovakia, and Slovenia, and later Romania joined the European Union has had hardly any impact on the linguistic policies of these countries. Okay, let's go on to educational consequences. First, we'll look at Hungary as we know the Hungarian Republic today. That's 10 million people. Hungarian standard language ideology has dramatic consequences, as has been shown by the Hungarian National Socio-Linguistic Survey, which we conducted at the fall of communism in 1988. Then we conducted a countrywide survey with a random stratified sample of 832 people, adult speakers. One question we asked was, what percentage of the entire adult population of Hungary is targeted by the language cultivators if, by definition, those who speak the codified standard are not targeted? In order to answer that question, we set up something you might call a Hungarian linguistic hurdle race. Okay, the data that we use are grammaticality judgments. We show the person a card. The card has a sentence, and they have to say if it's a correct, grammatically correct sentence or not. Then we did oral sentence completion tasks, like, I have never blank, New York is a big city. Insert the word no, and then you can do something like, I have never known New York is a big city, I have never known New York is a big city, etc. Okay, that's oral sentence completion. And the Hungarian grammatical hurdle race works this way. This is what you get. We start out with all the 832 people in the sample, okay? And then we give them a judgment task. Here is a sentence, is this grammatically correct or not, okay? Then we give them a second one, and the third one, and the fourth one. After the 10th sentence, hardly anybody is left. You see the far left black bar, that's all the people before they entered the race. 832 is down to 332 after hurdle 1. Hurdle 2 gets them down to 247. By hurdle 10, less than 8% are in the game. That means 92% of the people of the adult population of Hungary are targeted by the language mavens, the language purists, etc. Almost everybody. This is as far as judgments go. If you say, okay, we know judgments are very different than real speech, then here's some data. Okay. Then I'll just give you the story that if we do the oral sentence completion tests, we get the same steep climb, but at the end, 1/3 of the people are still alive. Okay, so you can say Hungarian language cultivators, school teachers, some crazy people, my fellows in the Hungarian Academy of Sciences and others, target the speech ways of 2/3 of all Hungarians in Hungary. Okay? All right. All the variables that we have used in this hurdle race can be characterized by this. They all have badly stigmatized variants. The variants that are banned are all normal according to Hungarian grammar, if Hungarian grammar doesn't mean school teachers' grammar, but real grammar that people walk around with in their heads.